Hi everyone, it's Tox from critshappen.com. Thanks for watching and welcome back. We're here with another critical review where we take a game, put it through its paces, and let you know if it's a crit, a hit, or a miss. As always, crits are top of the line and good for most everyone. Hits are very good games that would be good for you and your gaming group depending on your likes. And misses just tend to miss the mark with us, but still could be good depending on your game style and gameplay's group's likes and dislikes. Today, we're actually looking at two different games, both from Stronghold games. First, we're going to look at the base set of Voluspa that now includes the base set and the first expansion, Saga of Edda. Then we're going to look at the new expansion for Voluspa called Order of the Gods. Now, this is a tile-based game, as you can see from everything laid out in front of me. Everything you see here comes with the expansion Order of the Gods. Everything you see here comes in the latest print of Voluspa, the base set. The 8 tiles at the top are the base set. The 4 additional tiles are the Saga of Edda expansion. Now, this game is really interesting because it takes Norse mythology, Thor, Loki, Odin, Jotun, Hel, all the different things that you know from Yggdrasil and that world, and puts it into a perspective where you're trying to influence other tiles on the board to gain the most points. There's a little bit of computation that goes on, but once you understand how each tile works, the gameplay becomes quite easy. Let's take a look at a little bit of an example of gameplay and show you what we mean by that. And then we'll come back and talk a little bit about what we like about the base set and what the Order of the Gods adds to the gameplay as well. But for now, let's grab all our god powers, make sure we've got Mjolnir, and jump into the world of Voluspa. So here you see Voluspa. Let's talk a little bit about each of the different sets of Voluspa before we talk about gameplay. Over here, you have the top 2 rows of 8 tiles that are part of the original base set of Voluspa. You have Loki, you have Valkyrie, you have Skadi, you have Fenrir, you have the dragon, you have the troll, you have Thor, and you have Odin. You'll notice in the lower right, they are valued 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's going to make a big impact when you're scoring tiles as you play them. Now, as you look at the bottom row, there are 4 additional tiles, which are part of the very first expansion module called the Saga of Edda. In the new set here, this actually includes the Saga of Edda, as you can see right there, inside of the box set. In here, you have Hel, you have Hermod, you have Jotun, and you have the Sea Serpent. Now, Hel is a little different because she has a different back than all of the others. The rest all have Voluspa written on the back of them. Hel is unique. She has a specific power as each player will get a Hel token. In the normal game, everything else is mixed together in a pool face down, and you're going to be drawing tiles out of that pool. Hel, you will never draw. She will always be given to you at the beginning of the game. Now, before we talk about Order of the Gods and the expansion, let's talk a little bit about gameplay for Voluspa. So the first thing that would happen is all of the tiles would be placed face down and shuffled up. Now, after you have tiles shuffled up, if you were playing with the expansion, each player would get a Hel token. So let's say we're going to play a 2-player game where blue and yellow are going to track points up here and each get a Hel token. Hel is a little different because you start the game with her, and the tile must be placed face down on top of another tile that is not Hel. And any powers of the covered tile are nullified. That is why Hel has a different background with that barren land area. So she's going to be able to basically nullify and cancel out tiles that are on the board. Now, at the very beginning of the game, each player, after everything is separated out, is going to get 5 tiles to start the game. We like to shuffle them all up, place them in 5 stacks, and just draw 1 off the top of each stack for the very first hand of play. So blue player would get 5, the green player would get 5, and we would be off and running. Now, there's some rules for placing tiles. On your turn, you're going to play a tile, score points, and draw a tile. Now, when you play tiles, there's certain rules based on the character you're going to be playing, but more importantly than anything else is you can never have a row or a column with more than 7 tiles in it. So let's go ahead and start off and see how the blue player would start. And we'll put all of these face up so you can see them. So he has a Loki, a Skadi, 2 Jotuns, and an Odin. Now, the way that you score is by making sure that the tile you place has the highest value in the lower right-hand corner of anything in that row, and then you will score points based on the number of tiles in that row. Which, as you can imagine, at the beginning of the game, there's not much on the board, if anything, so you're going to be scoring low but moving up. Now, each player or each tile also has their own different power. So, for example, Skadi, who is a value of 3, when you place this tile, you exchange it for a tile on the table with Skadi and put the exchange tile into your hand, which is really, really powerful, but there's nothing on the board right now, so it's not that important to us. Loki is really interesting because Loki makes everything adjacent to him, horizontally or vertically, 0. So while he stays 1, everything else around him stays 0. So a really rough move would be to start off with Loki in the center of the board, because whatever my opponent plays is going to be 0 points, which is really interesting. Let's go ahead and do it that way and see how this plays out. I would place Loki. He is now the highest in the row or the column, but there's only 1 tile, so I only get 1 point. Then I would draw a tile. We usually, we have all the different stacks, we would just draw from whatever stack we want. And then it would be my opponent's turn. Now let's take a look at what my opponent has. My opponent has 2 Odins. He has a Jotun, he has a Sea Serpent, and he has a Thor. This is all really cool because he has really high value tiles, but whatever he puts next to Loki is immediately going to become a 0. So that is a heck of a starting move for me as a blue player. So as a green player, I may want to say, you know what, I might just want to play my lowest tile here and not have to worry about anything. But then we learn about Jotun and what Jotun can do. Jotun is, of course, part of the ancient race of enormous frost giants. He can bump any tile to either end of its line. If you do, you put Jotun in its place. So while it would be really nice if we could just bump Loki all the way off the board, it really just means that he would be bumped to either end of the row. In this case, nothing is going to happen. Now, Jotun would normally score here because he would be a 5 and Loki would be a 1, and this player would get 2 points for 2 tiles in the row. However, because Loki puts the tiles around him horizontally or vertically to a value of 0, Loki is still the highest in this row, so he does not score any points. Now, one really cool thing about the new expansion, Order of the Gods, there are 0 tokens that you can put on top of characters to denote more easily that they are now 0 because of Loki, which is really, really nice. Now, in this game that we're showing you, we're not using any of the tiles from that expansion, and I'll explain why in a second. So this player would then go ahead and draw another tile. He would draw Fenrir, and it would be up to me as the blue player again. Now, if I put my own tile next to Loki, it is still going to be 0. So I may not want to do that at all. But I may decide that I like the idea of having Jotun in my hand. So I may use Skadi to go ahead and put here and exchange Jotun. Skadi does become 0, so I'm not going to get any points, but I get that Jotun in my hand. So I now have 3 Jotuns, which could be really powerful for bumping people when and where needed. Now, I would draw a tile as well, and then that would be the end of my turn. And now I have 6 tiles in my hand because of Skadi's capability to bump and push. Gameplay continues on like this. People are going to be placing characters with different abilities throughout the game and extending the lines all the way around different areas of the board. And again, you can only have a maximum of 7 total tiles in a row or a column. Some people, like Thor and Odin, their special powers are nothing because they're just really, really high, 7 points and 8 points. There are some people, like the Troll, that allows you to not place anyone next to them, and they basically create like dead spaces around them. Fenrir is really cool because he is worth 4 points for every Fenrir in a row or a column. So if there was another Fenrir right here, each one would be worth 8 points. They would be more than Thor and be the highest ones in those row. And if I placed a Fenrir here, I would score for that row and gain points. Now, the base set has a lot to learn from all of the different capabilities of the characters as well as the saga of Edda. They all have very different capabilities. I'm not going to go through each different one. We've explained a few of them already, and as you can tell, Loki is very, very powerful because he's quite the trickster. But let's talk a little bit about the Order of the Gods expansion. The Order of the Gods expansion adds 4 new tiles to the gameplay. The first is the dwarf race. The dwarf race is very interesting because instead of scoring lines and rows, they actually score everything surrounding. So if I were to put a dwarf here, I would score half the points of each of the tiles surrounding it, which is really interesting. Then you have Freya, which is one of the better additions to the game in my opinion. Freya allows you to do a couple of different things. First, you can place it normally and it would be worth 3 points. Or you can discard Freya or multiple Freyas and boost tiles. So if I decided that I wanted to have, if this was my hand and I had 2 Freyas, I could discard 2 Freyas and I could boost this tile based on the number of Freya tiles that I brought into play, or that I discarded. So this is a 5, I discarded 2, it would then become a 7, so I could take a 7 token and put that on there. Now you'll notice he's still next to Loki, so technically he's still 0 even though he's been boosted. And I really like that about Freya because you have options with Freya. You have the ability to play her or discard her and bump other people up. Then you also get Nihilgar. Nihilgar is one of the monsters, and he is really, really painful. He has a 7 value, so he's going to be very powerful just by placing him on his own. But when you score a line with 1 or more of his tiles in it, you get 2 extra bonus points per tile. So if he was here, for example, and I ended up scoring this row, I would get 4 points, 1 for each tile, but then I would get 2 more because of the pluses that he brings to the table, which is really, really cool. And then there's my favorite, which is the Raven. Now, if anyone knows lore of Odin and Norse mythology, Odin had 2 ravens. In this game, the ravens, you get to play twice 1 tile in a turn. So if I have this in my hand, I can place it in 2 different spots and score each spot, but they must be different placements. So in other words, if I played him here, he is not going to be the highest in that row because of the 8. But oh, he is, because Loki turns Odin into a 0. So in this case, he would be the highest in this row. So we would have a 0 token on Odin here. We would get 3 points for 3 tiles in that row. Then I could pick him up and place him somewhere else and play him again. If I wanted to place him here, for example, I wouldn't be able to score this column, but I would be able to score this row and get 2 more points. The second placement is always where the Raven will stay. And I really like that those 4 tiles add a lot more capability and options to the game. Do you absolutely need Order of the Gods to enjoy Voluspa the base set? No. But does it add a good amount of flexible strategy to the game? Yes, definitely. So that's Voluspa. Voluspa is really nice because it's very flexible. This can be as complicated or as easy as you and your group would like it to be. If you want to play with just the base set, you can do that. If you decide, you know what, 1 tile is a little confusing, I want to switch that out and put something else in, you can do that too. If you want to go really crazy, you can put every single tile together, although they don't recommend to do that because it can make the game really, really long and really, really challenging. It is fun. We did try it once, but it did provide for a very long game. In fact, in Order of the Gods, there are a couple of scenarios that they've put together of examples of how to combine different tiles for really interesting gameplay. I thought that was really cool because there is a lot to learn with this game in terms of all the abilities that the characters and the tiles do. Once you get familiar with them, it becomes more easier, but being able to have a reference and be able to say, okay, we want to play with these, add this in, and that's the result we expect, I thought that was really cool as Stronghold to be able to do that for gamers, depending on your level of expertise or just level of patience with setup. Now, the base set on its own is really, really fun. You do not need to have Order of the Gods to be able to enjoy Voluspa at its core. The base set, plus all of the tiles that come in the new base set, which is the first expansion of Saga of Edda, are all very cool, very neat powers in terms of how they interact with each other, and really highly strategic moments of when is the right time to play something. When do I use my dragon to cover up? When do I use Hell? When do I use Hermod to play an additional tile? And is it really going to net me the most points I could really get? The thing that I enjoyed about all of this is that it did not present itself in such a way that it provided AP for anybody. Now, we have a couple people in our playgroup, admittedly, that can take quite a while to play games like this where there's a lot of computation going on. In the first few games, there is going to be some scenarios like that. But as you play more games, as you become more familiar with each of the tiles' abilities and the scenarios of when they use them, the game moves along really quite rapidly and it becomes very, very fun. Now, the Order of the Gods adds some really interesting things to it. One of the nice things, which is really interesting, are these 0 tokens. The 0 tokens are able to be placed on tiles near Loki to make it more obvious that those are zeroed out because of Loki's ability. When we first started playing the base expansion, that was a problem for us. We caught onto it very quickly, but it was a distraction. These are really nice because they're really big and you can just place them on the tile and you now know, okay, that's a 0 tile because Loki's next to it, and you don't kind of get lost. While the artwork is beautiful, because there's so much going on, especially when you get into a big board, you can kind of tend to lose Loki from time to time, which kind of ironically goes with the guy's powers. But it's really nice to have those. So it's an odd addition, but it's a great addition. It was really, really cool. The 4 tiles of all of them, I really like the Raven the best. The Raven is a nice addition. If anyone knows Norse mythology and lore, Odin had ravens. And because he had 2, because the ability of this allows you to play the Raven twice, I just thought that was really cool the way they pulled that lore into the game, but made it still very viable in terms of strategies of when you're going to play, how you're going to play, and how you're going to score points. That was probably the thing that I walked away from playing Voluspa with the most record in my memory of, is that each tile felt like what you thought it should do based on your knowledge of Norse mythology. And I thought that was really, really cool and really, really well done. Now, all of that said, I will be very straightforward with you like I always am. This is not a jump in and get going game. There are quite a lot of times that we referred back to the rules to understand how to score each of the tiles even after 2, 3, and 4 gameplays, because there is quite a bit to learn. Now, each tile has a little symbol on it that tells you what the power is of that tile, but it never really explains it thoroughly, and there are a lot of times where you have to reference back to the rule books. The nice thing is that in both cases, the rule books for the base set is only these 4 pages. The rulebook for the expansion is only the 4 pages as well. They're very brief, it's very easy to reference, does not become cumbersome like you're sitting here flipping through pages trying to find things. And again, once you understand a couple of gameplays through what the basics of the tiles' powers are, it becomes more inherent as you play more and more games. We've probably played about maybe 14 or 15 games of this right now, mixed in between the base set, including Edda, and then including Order of the Gods. And all of them have become very, very fun. They are strategic, they are luck-driven, and they are enjoyable. The theme is not always for everyone. In fact, one person actually said at one point, I feel like I'm playing Thor dominoes. But it still provides the strategic thinking. So, albeit the theme may not be for everyone because it is a more serious Norse theme, it is still something that pulls itself off very well, in my opinion. At the end of the day, the base set for Voluspa is going to get a hit, as is the Order of the Gods. This is something that, depending on your playgroup style, could be very, very fun. It is a short game in a 2-player mode. As you get into 4 and 5-player games, it's going to become quite longer. But because it is so small, all of this will actually fit in the main box, and it's very, very easy to port around and take with you on trips or on travel plans as well. So we like that also. We hope you enjoyed this critical review, but we'd love to hear from you as well. Feel free to leave your comments in the YouTube channel below. Of course, you can join in the discussion on Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus by searching Crits Happen or at our homepage at critshappen.com. But until we see you next time, we hope you enjoy all your god power and tile laying times inside of Voluspa and Voluspa Order of the Gods from Stronghold Games. Thanks so much for watching, keep rolling those dice, and we hope they're all crits.